Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
Thank you so much for taking time out and doing this interview with us. As you know, we're trying to record the history of the Temple number 12 under the Nation of Islam for all of those members who were involved before 1975. So thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, we have a basic format that we're going to be following. It has about 7 sections. You don't have to remember any of them, but I'll introduce them as we go along. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to start with first, could you please tell us your name, what name you would use when you were in the Nation of Islam, and what year did you join Temple number 12?
Well, with Temple number 12, my parents joined Muhammad's Temple number 12 in like the 1950s, the late 1950s. And so my father and mother got their ex in 1957. My father's name was George Carter. He got his X, so he became George 3X. And then I was his son, so I got the name George 4X. So that meant that he was the 4th George to register, well, he was the 3rd George to register with Temple number 12 here in Philadelphia.
And how old were you then?
I was 7.
Okay.
Right?
And what were your...
6 or 7 years old, right.
And what were your impressions when you first realized that you were part of the Nation of Islam?
Well, I knew I wasn't in no Christian religion. I knew that much. And we didn't celebrate Christmas and other Christian holidays. So I used to worry about that. I used to wonder, how come we ain't celebrating no holidays like all these other people?
Mm-hmm.
But then I realized that we were Muslims, and so Muslims didn't celebrate the Christian holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole difference about the position of Jesus from a Muslim perspective and Christian perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So I really didn't give much thought to it.
Mm-hmm. it
It was just maybe wish you got some toys.
Now, you were a young kid. You were 7 years old. How did that condition affect your relationship with the other children who were your age?
It didn't affect my relationship with other kids. I was just a common guy like everybody else, right? I do recall, I believe I was in my 2nd grade, 1st or 2nd grade, and I had a teacher. Her name was Miss Plunkett. She was a Catholic teacher, because I knew she was a Catholic because Ash Wednesdays they would wear this ashes marks on their foreheads. And so I seen her with these ash marks on her forehead. So I said, oh, well, she must be a Catholic, right? And then I was writing my name on my paper, and then I was writing George 4X. So she came over to me and said, "That's not your name. Your name is George Carter." And I said, "That is not my name. That's the slave master's name." Ah, that lady put me in the corner. I had to stay in the corner for telling her that.
Wow.
And then when I came home and I told my mother, my mother said, "Oh, don't worry about it. They don't understand." So I just left it alone. Right. But I never forget that incident.
Yeah.
That teacher said, "I am not no George Forex."
How did the other children respond when that happened to you? How were the other children? What was their response when they happened to you?
See, I don't even really recall what the other kids' responses was. It was more like seemed like something just kind of between her and I.
So now you're about 7 years old, and so please describe how or what you went through as a member of the Nation of Islam as a 7-year-old, and just describe your life up until you, as you went from to a teenager and whatnot.
Well, most of in my early childhood times, like we saying 7 and 8 years old and all that, we were very active in the Muhammad's Temple. So we were going to community outings. We would go to the zoo, to Philadelphia Zoo. I really used to enjoy that. Look at the animals and all that. So we would go on trips. I recall that vividly. Then, at that time, we were living when we first started going, we were living on Marion Avenue, the 45th and Marion Avenue. So my sisters, Charlotte, we would catch this 10 trolley to go to this masjid that was on Bailey Street back then. And I never forget, we were coming back on the trolley, and we got off at 45th Street, where we would get off and then walk on down about a block to our house. And then I jumped off this trolley and then went running across the street, and I nearly got hit by a car.
Whoa!
And my sister was so upset and hollering at me for not watching, and then she would have been blamed for me getting hit by a car, right? I'll never forget that incident.
So who was the minister at the time when you on Bailey Street when you used to go to the mosque?
From my recollection, it was like a brother named Brother Minister George, right? And that was Brother Minister George.
Did you?
My father, just once you join the Nation of Islam, they get you busy. So it didn't take him long to wind up being like an assistant minister. And then he was teaching in Camden, New Jersey, because he set up the temples. Mm-hmm. He set up the temples in Camden, New Jersey, and Coatesville.
Wow.
Those two temples, he set them up. So he was visiting in them regularly and administrating as an administrator, right? But then they moved from Bailey Street up here to 4218 Lancaster Avenue. And so temple number 12 moved from Bailey Street in North Philly to up here in West Philly. So this moving was only due to they needed a larger space. The community was growing.
Yeah.
And then the space here at 4218 Lancaster Avenue on the second floor of this faucet parts supply place. And I recall going there, and Malcolm was a teacher there. He and Imam worked in Muhammad. So the Honorable Elijah Muhammad had sent them both to Temple number 12 to help build the membership. And then Imam Muhammad was officially the minister. And then under his administration, he wasn't as restrictive as many of the others' temples.
How old were you then when Imam Worthington Muhammad came? Roughly.
See, that was like still in that same window, because my dad got his ex in 57, and then by 1960, he was the minister and everything. It ain't take long for you to get moved up the ranks, right?
Were there children's Islamic education programs then?
Yeah, we used to go to like Saturday. I guess you can call Saturday University of Islam School. Saturday, right? We did do that on Saturdays. And we would learn Arabic, but we basically learned Al-Fatiha. We learned to say the prayers in Arabic. And then we would learn little different phrases. Like, I'll never forget, my dad used to always say this phrase. It's been so long since I've said that phrase. But it meant a living dog is better than a dead lion. The Calhoun High and Aqua Newman Exeter my tongue. I remember that. So we used to learn the Al-Fatiha so that we could at least say our prayers. And so my friends, I used to actually sit out on the step with my neighbors, because we lived in a neighborhood and everybody had the marble type steps. And you used to scrub your steps, keep them clean and everything.
Yes.
And then in the evenings, we would all just be sitting out on the steps and your neighbors, and we play games and all that. And since we had learned these Arabic prayers, my neighbors and friends, they just thought it was so unique to be able to say these Arabic prayers. They said, say that prayer again. Then I would be saying the prayers for them. They thought that was so something special.
Yes.
Right? But otherwise, as a younger kid, I was just like basically all the other kids.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't no difference. Mm-hmm. We just didn't basically follow their holiday traditions. Mm-hmm. And then my dad used to say, oh, well, we ain't the only one not following these traditions. He said, Jehovah's Witnesses don't follow them. And see, Jehovah's Witnesses were well known.
Yeah.
They used to come around knocking on your doors, always recruiting people.
Right.
So we were like the Jehovah's Witnesses. Then that meant, oh, well, you ain't so strange. Right?
Yeah.
People could identify with that.
Yes. So now, when you went to high school, how was it for you then as a Muslim? And did you go to like FOI class and junior FOI class? Was that established then?
See, when I started going to high school, my family was not as active in the temple. Mm-hmm. When Imam Wafdi Muhammad came and Malcolm X came, and they were teaching here at Temple number 12, that was a very, very challenging time for the early Nation of Islam internally.
In what way?
See, President Kennedy had been assassinated. Mm-hmm. And then Malcolm made the statement about the chickens that come home to roost.
Yes.
And so the Honorable Elijah Muhammad suspended him from teaching. Mm-hmm. So he's supposed to have been suspended for, I don't know, several months, maybe 3 or 4 months or 6 months, something like that. Mm-hmm. But during that period, there was a lot of internal rift going on in the community. Mm-hmm. Because the big issue was, who's going to become the leader? Who's going to succeed the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and all that? And so a lot of people, even the Elijah Muhammad families, they wanted to be the ones succeeding him, not Malcolm. And so there was some internal stuff there. And then Malcolm had been suspended for making the statements that he made. But then at the same time, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was supposedly having sexual relations with some of his secretaries who were young people, they both have been kind of teenagers, young ladies, right? And Malcolm heard about that. And then actually the ministers that heard about it and learned about it, they were willing to accept that and used the idea, well, the messenger has the right to practice polygamy. And that in Islam, men can practice polygamy. They could justify it like that. But Malcolm made the point in the media about Elijah Muhammad messing around with these teenage girls, right? And so he kind of discredited the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And the big issue was, see, Malcolm and everybody, we looked up to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as a divine figure. And we looked at him as being flawless. And then to find out, man, this guy is not flawless. I thought he was supposed to be the holy apostle. So that really shattered Malcolm. And it shattered a lot of people, right? But Malcolm, he broke away from the nation, but during that period, he was really trying to rebuild this relationship and get back in, because he knew the way the Nation of Islam was structured, no other Jew organization had that capacity. But he went on and broke away, and he tried to start his organization, the Organization of African American Unity, and
so
I guess about a year later he wound up getting assassinated.
So how did that affect your family? Would you
see the way that it affected my family? Because of that internal stuff, my family members stopped going to the temple, right? So my grandmother, my grandmother, my aunt and uncle, Dave and Marie and their family, my cousin Carolyn, my uncle Mootsie, at least 10 members of my family all joined the Nation of Islam. And my grandmother had 9 children, and she's the matriarch of my family. And so all her family members, her children and grandchildren, they all had high regard and respect for her because she was the leader of this family, right? And so with her being in Nation of Islam and being like Afrocentric oriented and had this real strong sense of self-respect and dignity as African American people, she instilled that in our entire family. So even though they didn't join, even though they didn't remain active members of the Nation of Islam, the impact of the Nation of Islam on my family was certainly very impactful, right?
So now what happened after your family left the temple? Then when did you come back, and how old were you when you came back?
Yeah, I came back to the temple in 1971.
What made you come back?
Well, I was a teenager. Well, I was like 19, 20 years old. I was at the age where you're searching and self-awareness and self-identity and all that. And I seen brothers selling the papers. I would buy the papers sometime. And then I was saying, oh, I'm going to go. I used to chat with them on the corner. And I would tell them, oh yeah, my family was active members of the Nation of Islam. I'm George Forrest. Right? But I was thinking, I said, man, I need to go ahead and go back to Nation of Islam. And so that's what I did.
And where did you go when you rejoined? Where was the temple?
When I started coming back to the temple,
yes,
they were having temple meetings at 52nd and Walnut.
Oh, who was the minister there?
Minister Stanley. What was that? 139 South 52nd Street on the second floor.
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yeah.
Minister Stanley was the minister. And so I came back in that particular satellite temple. That was 12C.
Mm-hmm.
So I was selling my papers daily and selling the daily juice and fish and bean bars. You know, we just stayed busy every day. We went to the FOI classes and go to the temple every Wednesday and Friday and Sunday. Mm-hmm. We would always go fishing. You had to bring people into the temple. And then I was a big paper salesman. I was one of the top paper salesmen. Mm-hmm. And I used to really feel mission-driven, because we were all about uplifting our community.
Yes.
And raising the black man up, right? So I used to go in my neighborhood and sell my papers, and I had a route where I had lots of people just to deliver the paper every week. I had at least about 50 customers like that. Mm-hmm. And then I would get into conversations with people and encourage them to come to the temple. I would recruit friends of mine and other young people to come to the temple. And so I was really mission-driven with that spirit to get the lost found. Right? We had to pull our brothers and sisters up from the muck and mire. Right?
Yes.
So I enjoyed it. It gave me a real strong sense of purpose. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Right? And the nation had such a big impact on the black community, because you got to remember Muhammad Ali, he was a member of the Nation of Islam, and he was the world champion, heavyweight champion, boxing champion.
So now, when you went to temple number 12C, did you go to the FOI classes also on Saturday?
Yes. I went to the FOI classes on Saturday.
And what did you do there?
Well, in the FOI classes, we were learning how to drill. We drilled. That was a part of learning to be disciplined, following orders. We have to learn our general orders. So I learned my general orders by heart. I learned my student enrollment lessons by heart. And then you can get the next set of lessons. They used to teach us how to be salesmen. We would read books like we would read books like
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
How to Win Friends and Influence People. Right? How to Win Friends and Influence People.
The Greatest Salesman in the World. The Greatest Salesman in the World.
Yeah. But I remember the How to Win Friends and Influence People the most.
Yeah.
Because I really studied that book and I really tried to follow their principles.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget the guy said, be lavish in your appreciation and hearty in your praise. I said, yeah, I got to remember that. So I did. But yeah, we were learning to be salesmen. We learned how to talk to our people. We learned how to persuade, the art of persuasion, and how to bring the people to the temple. And I was really great at that. I was. I mean, look, I be selling my paper. I was flipping under their arm. Next thing you know, they got the paper. Then I'm bringing them into the temple. That was really good.
So
and
what?
Then even that temple over there at 12C, right?
Yes.
See, we were competing with the other smaller satellite temples, right?
Right.
So Minister Stanley, he was the minister at first. But then Minister Philip Salahuddin, he became the minister. And so while he was the minister, we were competing with the other satellite masjids, so who had the most people to visit the temples. So we set up house meeting teams. So me and Brother Kenneth Salam and Brother Purnell, we were all assistant ministers, and so we would go out and have house meetings. So my team would go over to 52nd and Woodland, and we would meet at this sister's house. All of a sudden, I can't think of her name, but every Wednesday and Friday, we would have house meetings at her house while the temple meetings was going on.
Wow.
On Wednesday and Friday, and we wound up having more people in the house meetings than the people had at the temple. But then now they were recording. If we had 20 people at our house meeting, then they would record that 20 with maybe the 10 people that they had. And they had now 30 people, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we were doing. And we were doing that all over the city. So that's how we stopped the gang wars. The gangs were a big problem in the city of Philadelphia.
Right.
Gang violence. So with us having them house meetings and engaging the community the way we did, the early Nathan actually stopped the gang violence in the city of Philadelphia. We never were given the credit for it. They gave credit to the House of Your Mojo.
Yeah.
Because they were doing fantastic work too.
Yeah.
But the early Nathan Islam was the one that really stopped that gang violence.
Now, as an assistant minister, were you trained? Did you get some training or lessons on how to be a minister? And if so, what were they? How did you get trained? So, how did you get trained as a minister, a assistant minister? Who trained you, and how did they train you?
Well, we did go to classes, but it wasn't really like something that, it wasn't like something that was like structured and you came to you went to for several weeks or something like that. It wasn't like that. We went to FOR classes, basically on Saturdays. So, I think many a times on the FOR class, the people that were assistant ministers and working in that capacity, they would have a separate class. They would have a separate class with Minister Philip or Minister Jeremiah, and I guess sort of like give us guiding principles on how to conduct the temple meetings. For one, the temple meetings were pretty structured. So, like, we opened up with the Abraham prayer, and then we used the Al-Fatiha, and then we had a structure in terms of how you welcome people. So people knew what the structure was, and you kind of like just followed that format. Then you brought the minister on, right? So that's how, it was like hands-on training.
Yeah.
That's what it was. Yeah. Kind of like hands-on training.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed that period. I mean, it really, like I said, it really gave me a strong sense of purpose, right? And I've always marveled over the greatness of our people in terms of our legacy and history. And I was very conscientious of the freedom struggle. And so I've always felt like I want to play a key role in that struggle to help uplift our people. When I was a young man, I really thought I'm going to be a leader one day. I did. I really did believe it.
Now, I read in your questionnaire that you really love doing drills. You like the drill competition, and you were one of the drill top drill persons. Is that true?
Oh yeah. See, I enjoyed the drilling, and then I never was in the service. So to me, being an FOI, I was in the service. I was in Muhammad's army. And
I heard you used to win competitions with everyone?
Well, the thing was with the FOI class, since drilling was an important component of the FOI class. So I would, we would all drill, learn how to drill. And then as part of the drilling, they would have a competition thing where you competing and who can make these steps and moves without messing up. And if you mess up, you have to fall out.
Yeah.
Right? So we did do that, and that's what really made me interested in the drilling. And then I wound up some kind of way, Captain Irvin or somebody told me, go ahead and start leading the drill. And so I wound up becoming a drill instructor. Right? But that's because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Right? And then I was leading the drill classes, and I was the drill instructor for a while. And then Brother Anwar, his name is Clarence, Brother Clarence. Brother Clarence was in the military. He was in the service. And so he joined our community. And then I told Captain Irvin, well, he might as well let him be the drill instructor. He was already in the service. So Anwar became the drill instructor. And then Anwar took that drill team of his and formed a drill team like a crack squad. And they were doing some really fantastic stuff. And they were actually traveling, traveling, doing drilling. And that's one thing the nation is noted for its drill instructions and the discipline in the drilling.
Now, when you became an assistant minister, were you married then?
Well, at first I wasn't married.
Okay.
I returned to 1971. But then I got married, I'm pretty sure that was like 1973.
And how was your family life while you were in the Nation of Islam and you got married in 1973?
Well, at first I married the Sister Catherine. And so that was around 73. I'm pretty sure that it was around that time. And
how did it affect your family life being in the Nation of Islam and married? Was Catherine a Muslim too?
Yeah, I mean, well, Catherine and I, well, that was my first time really having to be responsible for a family and other people and all that. So she and I first got an apartment over on 48th and Chestnut. And then we moved into this apartment. I didn't even have furniture. I didn't even have furniture. And then from there we built our family. I built our family up. I built furniture up. Then we moved. See, we lived with her mother for a while in North Philly. And then we bought a house in West Oak Lane. Yeah, we got a house in West Oak Lane that another family, a Muslim family, they were moving and they told us, look, y'all can take over our house. You can just pay the mortgage. I was like, great. And so we lived out in up West Oak Lane. That was when I was married with Catherine.
Did you have children then?
Yeah, Catherine and I had one child.
And did they go to the University of Islam?
No, they didn't go to the University of Islam.
Did you go to the University of Islam?
No, I didn't. Well, when I was young, we were going to, we called it I guess the University of Islam weekend school, like on Saturday. But then, when I was a young adult, my children, Sakia, with my first marriage, she didn't attend the University of Islam school or anything. But then my second marriage, when I married Marcia, my sons, they went to the University of Islam school. But it was called by the Claire Muhammad School.
Okay, that was after 1975, though.
Right.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this. Going back now, when you came back and you got in Temple number 12C, and you became assistant minister, you were recruiting people and everything. Tell me, what were your most memorable experiences during that time? What thing stand out the most?
I remember vividly selling our papers, engaged in the community. I really loved doing that. And people had high regard and respect for me. Because they knew, first of all, that I was sincere and that I was serious. And so I loved engaging the community, and I loved to talk. So I call myself always trying to help educate our people. So I guess I considered myself an educator to some degree.
So if you had to do something different, what would you have done differently if you were to do that all over again?
I would not have done anything differently. I thought the structure and everything was fantastic. And it was what we needed at that time. Right?
So do you have any regrets on anything?
No, I have no regrets about that. It was Nation of Islam gave me structure. At that time, if you didn't have structure, you just get caught up in the streets, and your chances of living in the streets weren't very good. So you were doing good to be in a structured, safe environment with the Nation of Islam.
So how has your Nation of Islam experience influenced your life since 1975?
How much of it what?
How has your Nation of Islam experience influenced your life since 1975?
Yeah, that's my foundation. That is my foundation. I mean, that is what made me who I am today. See, because we got to remember, then I was being formed in the early adult life, my early adult life. I was an active member in the early Nation of Islam. And that formed my foundation of my adult life. So it was the Nation of Islam that formed me. It literally was. And then the spirit of uplifting the black community That was the spirit that was in the Nation of Islam. I never lost that spirit. And so that's what I see Islam as a faith tradition having the capacity to do, to uplift our people.
So what lessons or habits have stayed with you?
What lessons?
And habits have stayed with you?
I guess because I found that this New Africa Center, Muslim American Museum and Archive, and I work to strive to preserve our legacy and have it documented, so other generations can and other people can see it. So I'm always thinking about that. That's just my passion, right? So the lessons, I mean, the early Nation of Islam orientation was that you had to learn the Lost Found Muslim lesson number 1, Lost Found Muslim number 2, and all that, right? Your problem book. Those were the basis of the theology of the Nation of Islam. Those lessons and those problem books. They were very, very, very significant because at the time we thought we were getting supreme wisdom. So this supreme wisdom that we could now communicate with one another is like we got the insight that others don't have. And so that gave us a real sense of bond. That we really got this thing, man, that make us special, right? And so that was a great tool. Because now you had everybody all thinking alike. And so that's what helped us bond and gave us this strong sense of fellowship. And stuff like that.
Yes.
So I loved it.
So what do you hope future generations understand about the Nation of Islam during that era?
I think future generations need to fully understand that is the foundation that they're standing on. It was the early Nation of Islam that laid the foundation for Islam in America. I don't care. I mean, we know there were Sunni Muslim masjids in this country before 1930 when the Nation of Islam was founded. And there's no doubt about that, right?
Right.
But it was the Nation of Islam that had the greatest impact on the black community. The early Sunni Orthodox Muslim masjids established here in America, they weren't really that interested in recruiting black people. The only groups that was interested in doing any dawah with black people were the Ahmadiyya community, right? And then most of the immigrant Muslims and others that were here that had Orthodox Sunni Muslim masjids, they weren't involved in dawah. Dawa wasn't what they came through the United States for money, good homes, and friendship, and all walks of life. Like we was trained in Nation Islam to try to get, right? But it was the Nation of Islam that had the greatest impact. Even though we weren't being told or trained or taught traditional Islam, we were being introduced to the nation, to Islam. Then the one thing I tell everybody, the original nation, the original organization was founded in the 1930s by Farad Muhammad, not Elijah Muhammad. Elijah Muhammad was his student, and he taught what Farad Muhammad taught him. And Farad Muhammad was in Detroit preaching for like 3.5 years or more, and then he disappeared and left Elijah Muhammad as the leader, right? Then the organization itself, its name was the Lost Found Nation of Islam in the Wilderness of North America. That's what the name of the organization was. And just its name clearly articulates what its mission was. Get the lost found Muslim community in America, right? And here in America, we in the wilderness of North America, right? I mean, that's all esoteric code language that clearly articulate what their role was. Mm-hmm. So people that say, well, Elijah Muhammad, Nation of Islam didn't teach Islam, they preached shirk. I said, well, you didn't know what the role of Nation of Islam was. Just look at what its name of the organization, it clearly tell you what their mission was. And I think the mission was accomplished. Right? So, yeah, that was our foundation. Mm-hmm. And then with that foundation, having knowledge of self. Mm-hmm. See, that's what Nation of Islam was about. Learning to have knowledge of self, do for self, self-respect, right? And then the idea of the white man being the devil, black people ain't no problem with that. They act like the devil. Lynching and killing black people for all the time since we've been here. Man, they are devil behavior. That's the devil's behavior. So black people did not have a problem with calling the white man the devil, right? So, but thank God, Imam Muhammad, he came and became the new leader, and he was able to take those lessons and reorientate and reinterpret those lessons. And then introduced us to Islam proper.
Yes. So I want to go back to when you were at 12C. Where was the temple at 12C?
We was at 12C was at 139 South 52nd Street, around 52nd and Walnut, on the second floor over top of a shoe store. Mm-hmm. And that was 1971. Mm-hmm. That was 12C. Mm-hmm. But then it wound up becoming 12E somewhere around 74, something like that, where Lieutenant General was the minister. Because one thing about Minister Jeremiah Shabazz, he was a great organizer. And so he had satellite temples all over the city, all over this region. So here in Philadelphia, I think we had, I don't know, up to maybe 12 H and 12 J, right? And then, so with all those temples, if you got H, you got A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, right? So we got like, and then headquarters. So we have like 8, 9, or 10 temples right here in the city, right? Then we had this other smaller temples, satellite temples for the Delaware Valley. Camden, Coatesville, Atlantic City, Harrisburg. See, and all of them temples were all part of the Delaware Valley, where Minister Jeremiah Shabazz was over them. So that's what made us be such an influential group. And then you got to remember, we were all amongst mainly a lot of young people, right? We were in our late teens and early 20s, because we were all part of this new black consciousness generation, right? And so, Nation of Islam, we were all gravitated to it because they were the most. They were the one producing. And if you wanted to be with a productive group, you joined. And that's why we were so impactful. I would never. I have no regrets about being a part of that movement. And we need a movement like that today.
Tell me, excuse me, tell me about your impressions of Minister Jeremiah. You mentioned he was a great organizer. Can you talk about him and how he influenced you and what your impressions were of him as a leader?
Yeah, Minister Jeremiah was he was a fantastic organizer. He was a good minister. See, different people have different people appreciated Minister Jeremiah Shabazz for different things. As far as a minister, he was a very powerful speaker. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't like a spiritual teacher. He was a practical teacher. And so he was talking about money, good homes, and friendships of all walks of life right here on earth. And having money and being able to have businesses and establish your own community life. That's what he was great with teaching. In terms of like spirituality and metaphysical type messaging, that wasn't his thing.
So tell me about his influence in establishing businesses and the school like the University of Islam and all those things. What were your impressions of him in those regards?
Yeah, I was very pleased and happy to be a part of a movement that was able to make these achievements, right? And then see, with the early Nation of Islam, we used to raise all this money and send it to Chicago, right? And then we were like, with the spirit that we're going to help build up the south side of Chicago and build this community model for community development. And that's what we were doing. And so the national headquarters was Chicago. And so there was a lot of progress being made there. We had the banks and all that. And so we used to go yearly to go hear the Honorable Elijah Muhammad on Savior's Day and have this great sense of fellowship and brotherhood with these conventions with like, I don't know how many people be in them meetings, 25,000 people, stuff like that.
Were you involved with the bazaars here? And we used to have these joint meetings at the Blue Horizon. Could you tell us about what your experiences were with those activities?
Oh, yeah. Well, see, that was also a joint effort. Mm-hmm. See, every masjid, every temple, we had to sell the banquet or to sell the tickets. Sell tickets to the bazaars and recruit vendors, right? And encourage vendors to come. Then when the bazaars were taking place, we had to hold posts. So we would set up the posts to like either be security, to search the brothers and sisters when they come in, or stand posts where you just call yourself guarding the ministers or guarding the businesses, looking around, making sure there's no riffraff going on, right? I mean, so we just stayed busy. And then it gave you the sense of you weren't just a participant, but it was your program because you was involved in promoting it. And it represents your community. So all of that was very, very important, and it had a big impact on our community. And then we were able to get some pretty big name artists, popular artists, you know, like the Delphonics. They were Muslims. They would come and sing. And then
Joe Tex.
We had other people like, what's that guy named that?
Joe Tex?
Joe Tex. Yeah, Joe Tex. He was an active member of our community. Then we had Sonia Sanchez. She was a member of Nation of Islam, right? Jim Brown. They joined and they had a Friends of Muhammad committee. And they were celebrities. And they were supporting our efforts. Because this whole idea of self-reliance, do for self, economic independence, right? Because we were being discriminated against. And then redlining. We couldn't even get good housing, right? just to hold all the evils of systemic racism.
Tell us about the fish program.
Yeah, the Whiting H&G Fish Program. That was a grand opportunity for a lot of brothers to make money. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Nathan Islam imported hundreds of thousands of pounds of Whiting H&G frozen fish from Peru. And this fish was brought from South America and shipped up here to Chicago and then distributed throughout the country to all the different masjids and, well, temples then, right?
Right.
And the fish being frozen, so you had to have refrigerated trucks to be able to transport this stuff. So the distribution, the whole economics that go with it, that the Nation of Islam was the largest importer of Whiting H&G fish in the United States of America. I mean, we were. And once the fish was distributed across the country to the various temples, the brothers, the FOI, we would go out and sell the fish and get our people to buy this fish, and then that was a way of employing, being self-employed, right? And then a lot of brothers opened up steak and take restaurants. And then they start selling Whitey H&G fish and finding all kinds of ways to make this fish into different dishes. And so all of that was happening, and it was all about the spirit of community development. Under the idea, the slogan of the early Nation of Islam, a do for self, right? And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad Fish Program was a grand opportunity, an example of what we could do working together in unity, right? And nobody couldn't shoot that down. He said, man, them people are productive. And then he wasn't just talk. See, because the Muhammad Speaks newspaper had on its masthead, black men's hands hold the hands across the globe from Asia and Africa, from the United States and stuff, and then you had the United States at the bottom. But the idea was showing unity and economic empowerment. And Nation of Islam was doing it, right? They following the same thing with like Marcus Garvey, right? So the movements, ideas, they take time. They move. Seeds are planted. And then you get the product of the harvest finally, eventually.
So, when you, during your tenure during the Nation of Islam, I'm sure you met many people. How many, or how would you say you developed friendship. And are those persons that you brought to the temple, are some of them still members of the Islamic movement? And do you still maintain contact with them?
Yeah, I mean, a number of my fish. See, that's what we called them. See, we used to have to go fishing. That's what we called. We called the people that we brought to the temple our fish. And Minister Jeremiah used to say, like, we are fishermen of men, right? And so I believe it was Jesus and his disciples used that type of term of recruiting or recruit converts. They called it fishing. So that's what we were. We would go out, bring the people to the temple. We called that fishing. And then quite a number of people that I brought to the temple, they converted, and they still active in the community today. Right? Yeah, because see, we were all the same, mainly the same age. So yeah, so I'm more than sure at least, I don't know, 6 to a dozen people, maybe even be more than that, that I know that was personally my guests, and they joined our community, and then they still with us today.
Beautiful.
Right.
So, do you have any special things that you'd like to mention, any closing remarks during the course of this interview? Is there anything that you'd like to share with us that we haven't covered? Are there some final remarks you'd like to make with regard to your experience of the Nation of Islam before 1975?
Yeah, last comments about that? No, I guess I done articulated my feelings about it. And the key thing that I would love for people to understand is that they understand what the social, economic, and political realities of the time in which the early Nation of Islam and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his leadership circumstances were. Once people fully understand that, then they can see the real value of that movement. And secondly, that movement, regardless if they didn't introduce traditional Islam to our community, that community or that movement laid the foundation and introduced Islam to the overall African American community. Because without that movement, Islam would not have spread the way it has. And that's the takeaway I hope people get with it. Take from it.
Well, I'd like to thank you very much for allowing us this opportunity to interview you. And what we plan to do, we're going to do a transcript of this interview, and then we're going to send it to you for your review and approval before we actually publish it. We're doing a number of these interviews with many of the members who were a part of the Nation of Islam before 1975. And we're going to produce a book, and we're doing it for the purpose of preserving our history and put it in a book form so that others can learn from it.
Well, thank you. And thank you for inviting me to be a part of it.
We thank you for being a part of it.
All right.
All right. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Alhamdulillah.
Well, I guess that was okay. Was that okay, sir?